And now, moving along to a wonderful world of electronic mail, we are going to hear about vulnerabilities in DKIM, DMARC, and BIMI. And I'm sure I'm going to find out whatever that is. Sounds very scary because I have 2 different email addresses. Both of them don't work. Now I know why. But let's welcome on stage to tell us about There's Nothing New Except Forgotten Old, Abusing Email and Defending Against It, Mr. Taavi Eomäe.
Hi, my name is Taavi Eomäe. I'm from Zone Media, and officially I'm a cybersecurity specialist, but unofficially I'm a email enthusiast. How much you can be that? Short peek into how email started. Then we're gonna take a look at how we call things now. Then we're gonna speak about how to send email and how to not send email. So it's gonna cover a rather wide array of topics. As you can see here, the standard ecosystem is rather complex. There's a lot of standards that each and every email provider kind of has to follow or should follow, but it's not that simple because we have a long history. So here's all of the standards that have been deprecated or updated, and this is only a small selection. There's so many more, actually. Short overview about the terms. First one being MUA, which is the mail user agent. That's the thing you're reading your email with. Thunderbird, Outlook, MAT, whatever. Second one is MSA, which is your message submission agent. And that is used to send your email to. So your MUA sends your message to the MSA, and then it gets delivered to the MTA, which is mail transfer agent. And we at Zone have our hand in like many of these products many people use. And one of the largest sources of confusion are all the different addresses each and every email has. So the first one is the way how the server itself calls it. So it gets sent during the SMTP connection. The server introduces itself. It says how it wants to be called. Then there's the mail from command, which the server sends, saying where the email is from. This address is also used to send back bounces, and it also has 2 different names, which often get confused. The third one is the message from. This is inside the message itself after the command has been sent. So one email has 2 from addresses already. This is also the from address you see in your MUA, which is your mail client. And lastly, there's the sender header, which supplements the envelope from in case they mismatch. So you might see this in your client as on behalf of. And yeah, it's rarely used, but for some reason that is displayed to the user and the envelope from is not. Now we get to the first major standard, which is the SPF. Currently, it has only one applying standard, but the past is rather colorful. So the SPF record is a simple DNS record you add to your DNS zone. The record authorizes the use of a relevant domain in the hello and mail from identities. And it looks rather simple. You can list individual IPs. You can say your MX or your A record should be authorized. And lastly, you can also unauthorize something. So you have to kind of explicitly say that everything else I do not authorize, which is one of the first problems as well. But unfortunately, only less than half of Estonian domains are covered by SPF. And this SPF applies to the SMTP from, which is not displayed to the user. Now we get to the bad part. First thing is SPF alone is quite old, so we have legacy implementations that only implement SPF. So our email server might be looking at your hello or your mail from, which is not the one that's actually displayed to the user. Another issue is shared environments, because SPF boils down to IP addresses, and those are really often shared. They are shared in environments such as shared hosting, but also Office 365, Proofpoint, and so on and so forth. Third issue is maintenance, because adding this record, you're authorizing an IP. Now, if you stop using a vendor, people forget to remove those IPs. So you have SPF records that contain either IP addresses that have been long reallocated, or just including domains that are no longer registered. So yeah, this has become a real problem. And lastly, as I mentioned before, it applies to the SMTP from and hello, mostly to the first part. And as this is not displayed to the user, implementations that only take a look at SPF do not protect the user from forgeries. But it cannot be ignored, because we have those legacy implementations. We still need to authorize our IPs for those reasons. So if you're trying to implement it, you should try to keep the scope as minimal as possible. Use dedicated IPs where possible. So if your vendor, such as Mailgun or Chimp, allows you to use dedicated IPs, document the reason behind the record's content. If you just authorize a vendor and you don't know what that IP is, nobody's ever going to remove it thinking it will break everything. Also, you can use subdomains to send your email. So if you use a vendor, you can give them the subdomain, let them send under from that subdomain. You can authorize just that one vendor. It kind of makes the record easier. It kind of makes the management easier. Also protect your parked domains. So if you're not using, say, your type of domain you register to protect your company, protect it with a SPF, because otherwise someone could take the domain and use it to send a phishing email you try to prevent. Second part is Taavi, which is just signing email. Now, this is a bit better. This is a few years newer. And it permits you to authorize a domain. Like you can take your domain, use your key pair to sign a message, and that domain identity gets assigned to that message. So you do not have to use the same domain to sign your email, but you should, because that will be checked by other things later. And there's a strong push in the industry to just allow authenticated email. So Gmail has recently really ramped up their requirement to have either SPF or Taavi. So again, shared environments are a problem, because you might be in situations where one vendor is signing email for a lot of domains, and if their authentication or just system is not isolated enough, you can just get your email signed that should not get signed. The standard itself is a bit too vague, so implementations differ in ways that we would not like them to differ. The third issue is that you have to explicitly specify that you have signed something that does not exist. This is a really annoying concept, because it's really difficult to predict what you don't want to be added to your email. So instead of just signing what has been included. So this allows plenty of issues you will see later. Fourth issue is that there's no expiration by default. That was added later. That implementation is rather poor in the ecosystem. And lastly, there's a lot of legacy signatures out there using outdated crypto. and the migration to better and newer algorithms is hindered by the same legacy implementations. But again, vendors such as Google, for some reason, do not support the elliptic curve signatures. So now we get to the first example of bad key management. We have a vendor that has reused the same key to sign, I guess, bills for many different domains. And if you just take a quick look at the .ee zone, you can just look up the record and you can see which ones are sharing the same key. This will become a problem later on. One of the most recent examples is this summer. We had Proofpoint and echo spoofing, where Proofpoint customers were impersonated by malicious actors. Their domains were used to sign phishing emails. A lot of credit card details were stolen. And the comment Proofpoint released about the incident is also kind of interesting, because they're saying that they have gone into great lengths to raise awareness and get them to correctly configure their systems. But for some reason, this misconfiguration is the default. And I do not see how the two concepts go together. And they blame the customer in the end. Yeah, again, do not reuse keys between your domains and customers. This will cause a lot of trouble. Enforce key lifetimes. So if you do set up TKIM, you should actually write down that you should rotate it like once a year or something, because you do not want to send emails that are signed, and if you check them 10 years later, they are still signed, because things get outdated, keys get stolen. You do not want to keep them in your DNS. Try to update your TKIM assessor, which is the part that checks the signatures, because there have been changes to better enforce the standards. And do not use the length tag. We will get to this later. Again, you can use subdomains to limit blast radius. Just recently we had a FBI web server hacked, which could send email, and those emails were signed with their nice key. But in this case, they just sent a few emails to warn about the danger. But if you combine this with the recently really often found scam where people are scared into, I don't know what the end goal is, probably stealing money or something, then you can see how a combination of these two can end up really nasty. Third one, DMARC. Currently one applying standard, but a few additions again. This one finally applies to the from address that you as a user actually see in your client. And it's kind of annoying because DMARC, its deployment is much, much worse than it is for even SPF, for example. And yeah, you can specify a policy that gets applied to the letters based on the SPF and TKIM alignment, and that alignment is checked against the right from address. So yeah, solves a bunch of problems for us, and yeah, prevents many forgeries. And it can be deployed piece by piece. You can set a percentage of emails that should be applied the policy. So that's really nice. But it is as strong as the weakest link. So if your SPF or TKIM implementation is poor, you will still pass DMARC. And the second problem is that you can publish a policy that does absolutely nothing. You can say the policy is none, and that will just result in, I guess, a compliance checkmark that you have a DMARC record, but it doesn't do anything, and actually the opposite. You might be authorizing more emails, because without the DMARC record, assumption is that you do not know anything about DMARC and we should apply just the SPF. But if you say in DMARC that the policy is nothing, then you're allowing more forgeries. And last statistics show that the implementation in Estonia is less than 25%, which is really poor. Now we're getting to the first legacy problem, I guess. The L tag was initially intended for increasing robustness of the signatures after they pass through some relays, such as mailing lists or like security gateways. And the RFC after this one sentence contains 4 other sentences how using the length tag is a bad idea. So it's not that hindsight is 2020. No, the RFC was written and it was a bad idea since the start. So for some reason, 16 years have passed and we're still using it. This is a recent example about domains that have used it in the last 60 days. So you will see how this is a problem next. So, in this case, we have a letter from DHL. You can see how actually one of the SPF checks already fails. This is because this is my forgery already. I have taken the DHL letter, I have resent it, and SPF has not passed, but it was accepted by Gmail because the signature was valid. And the signature in this case has a length tag. You can see the highlighted in red. We can also see the culprit here, what added the bad signature, and yeah, that's also highlighted. So if you have Ironport appliances, you should really make sure you disable this feature. This is the example how it ended up. So we took the nice DHL delivery notice that my package is on the way. And in this case, I just replaced it with a simple sentence, but I might as well have added another login page or something that you need to pay like €5 to get your package or something. And it would have contained this nice blue check mark. Everything would have looked really authentic. And yeah. This forgery passes the check. It gives it a DMARC pass, which in turn gives it a BIMI pass, and it's a really juicy result for a fish. So if we go back here, you can see how forging these letters can be really devastating for some. But yeah. Now we're getting to the BIMI, which was mentioned briefly in the previous slide. This is still a draft, so it's not finalized. It's gonna change a bit. BIMI, which is short for brand indicators for message identification, it permits domain owners to coordinate with mail user agents to just display a logo, like you could see in the previous slide, that nice blue checkmark. Makes it just a bit clearer to the user that the email is legit. But again, deployment of BIMI, as it depends on DMARC, is quite bad. This is global statistics, and you can see like globally around 3,000 domains actually have working BIMI. Now we're getting to the forwarding part. It's a really common use case. There are a lot of mailing lists. There are a lot of security appliances. There are just users that want to send their email somewhere else. So for that reason, we have the SRS, which is the sender rewriting scheme, which allows us to just rewrite the SMTP from, just so that the letters would pass SPF. And this carries the penalty that the from address will look nasty. But we have a more recent addition, which is the ARC, which is authenticated received chain. This allows us to sign each step in the chain of sending an email. And in theory, it should allow us to like go backwards in the chain of receival and verify that everything was okay if you trust the signature. These are really similar to TKIM signatures. But there's not only a single solution to signing messages. So the first and most common one might be SMIME, which is quite old again, and it just uses your really standard X509 certificates and CAs. So just a PKI you can use to sign your email. Just recently, in addition to just the technical parts, there have been recent changes to the policy side of things. So the CA and Browser Forum has a SMIME workgroup that Zone is also part of as an observer. And yeah, there has been a recent baseline that the CAs have to follow in order to issue SMIME certificates. This allows you to sign your email and see a nice green checkmark in supported clients. And technically, it's quite simple. You add a respective content type header, you specify the meme type, you specify your algorithm and the boundary, and many clients also include this message in the raw header section. And this is basically it. It's not really complex in that sense. But it really reminds me this meme where, yeah, we're going to say this is a signed message, and yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, for many, this is the extent of validation they can do. But SMIME also has a few problems. For a really long time, priorities were elsewhere. So the SMIME baseline is one of the first things in that aspect in recent times. And before that, it was kind of forgotten, and other technologies were focused on. And the same baseline should allow us at some point to have something like ACME for email, so your email client can actually fetch a certificate to sign messages with. And the same with TKM. We have SMIME has the same issue that the mail user agents are not actually really forced to display only the signed parts. And when the length tag allowed replacing the message content, in the SMIME's case, you as a user might be signing something like the subject or the from address or whatever, but the mail user agent might pick the unsigned version of the same header because you can have many of the same in the same message. Signing itself is quite doable. You only need your own key pair, and you can use it to sign your outgoing messages. You do not need the receiver's public key or anything like that. But clients are a bit buggy, and you will see why soon. But SMIME itself has rather widespread support. Things like even Gmail supported, even the public version. You don't have to be a G Suite customer. Outlook, Thunderbird, Apple Mail, a lot of clients supported. There is ongoing work to improve it, so yeah, it's definitely a tech that has regained its popularity in some aspects. But one of the potential problems with implementing SMIME is that it also allows encryption, but yeah, the thing with encrypted emails is that you're either going to have to keep your key for a really long time, which is usually not that great of an idea, and it's failure prone. But again, I think this might actually be a benefit. Like, as a company, you probably do not want to keep all of your emails for like 10 years. You probably shouldn't be keeping them for that long for GDPR reasons. And one of the last benefits is that it is intended for humans. Unlike SPF or other tech before it, those are not really meant for you humans, like signing stuff that isn't displayed. Yeah. So SMIME in that case is better. One of the vulnerabilities I found in Apple Mail just recently was that in certain cases, you might click that nice blue padlock icon. You can see it, yeah, must be enabled. You can see how the hover text says that, yeah, if you click on this, you will turn off the encryption. But yeah, then you press the send button and the email ends up unencrypted. And depending on your email client configuration, this can end up in like you leaking the entire previous past conversation you had with that recipient. And you can see how that is bad for a thing that says, I'm now going to encrypt your reply. And yeah, it was fixed I think 6 months ago, finally. It took them a year. But some of you might say, what about BGP? Well, first thing I actually looked into was double signing, because in theory there are nothing is really stopping you from adding 2 signatures to the same email. But in practice, none of the clients really accepted messages like that, because they expect 1 signature and it has to be from the one signing system, so to say. And this is really unfortunate, because you could you would have less trade-offs if you could double sign using 2 systems, so the recipient can just pick the one that they like more, and you would get a larger coverage in email clients. But yeah, I can't see neither ecosystem actually wanting to cooperate with the other one to allow this. So it's probably going to remain a pipe dream. But it is much less usable than S-MIME, because the tooling, it has gotten really obsolete. We have one major implementation that everyone basically uses. Other implementations kind of have to follow them instead of being able to move forward. So in that aspect, BGP is kind of being really hindered by the past decisions that have been made, and this results in like crypto that is not really that up to date as it should be. We're still using primitives that are widely considered poor, like for example PKCS1 version 1.5 padding for signatures, and in 2006 researchers said that it's really easy to implement insecurely, and this has been the case in a lot of recent implementations as well. So yeah, but you're forced to use it. There's no option to use something more modern like RSA PSS. Yeah, but it's not only about the letters themselves. Besides the letters, you also have the transport encryption between either your MUA or your MTAs. And for those, we have 2 major technologies, one of them being MTA STS, other one being DANE. But first I'm going to touch upon StartTLS. StartTLS is, by all modern standards, absolutely garbage, because we're mixing 2 different types of actions. We're mixing in secure communications with secure ones. This has resulted in multiple different vulnerabilities where either extra commands can be injected into the encrypted communication, or it otherwise fails or is impacted by downgrade attacks. So in that sense, you should definitely try to switch to implicit TLS. It's available in basically all modern clients. This means that TLS connection is straight up established. Everything starts up encrypted, remains encrypted, nothing can get injected, and you're not exposing like unencrypted command interface to the world or something. And one of the problems here is, though, that many implementations call it SSL for some reason instead of a mix of TLS or SSL. So SSL was, the last version was deprecated in 2006 or 16. It doesn't matter, it really deprecated, but the terms are old. So you might find TLS under the label SSL. Now we're getting to MTA STS. Yeah. MTA STS is a relatively recent addition. It was standardized in 2016. When a DNS record exists saying that there's an MTA STS policy, then the MTA fetches a policy document served over HTTPS from your web server. It contains the version, the mode, your MXs, and the max age. The MX is the one that is going to be the one that the encryption is forced upon. So if you say enforce, the communication to zonemx.eu is going to be encrypted, And the max age specifies how long an MTA should keep this policy like in its cache or whatever. So yeah, in this case, that's 1 day. It's really easy to deploy. It's supported by many different vendors, one of the biggest ones being Google, but ViaZone also supported for outgoing email. And yeah, it's not hard to deploy. You can do it today, basically. And there's no downside unless your TLS implementation is somehow weird. The second one being Dane. This specifies how TLSA records, also DNS records, can be added to your DNSSEC signed zone to validate TLS connections. Usually it's a public key of your server. But in this case, TLSA and Dane has a few trade-offs, which is that it depends on the existence of DNSSEC. DNSSEC is also, like in Estonia, it's quite common because there's a common implementation that supports it. But in other cases, it's rarely supported. And in those cases, it kind of fails open. And yeah, this is recent documentation from Microsoft. And you can see how all of the dark green squares are kind of falling open. Yeah. And there's only one path that results in an actually secure connection, as it should. In the case of MTA SDS, it's a bit more straightforward and less failure prone. But the current state of transport encryption is also kind of depressing, because only MTA SDS and Dane can actually protect against an active attacker, because email itself is kind of so much legacy. So yeah, this was not a focus when email servers were set up, but it is a focus now. Here's a small list of mail servers I found that have no valid certificate. And I think this should raise a few eyebrows, because I would assume that if I write to my hospital or something, that the letter will arrive there at least transport encrypted. But in these cases, that cannot be the case. And that's even without MTA SDS. In the future, there's a high likelihood that TKM will also be changed in some aspects. I expect that the length tag might get either deprecated or operations notice published. But also, we will see an increase in DMARC enforcement. So if you do not have a DMARC record, then you might get your emails just rejected. Then there's also BIMI, and as it's still a draft, it's very likely that we will see changes that either alter how mail user agents or MTAs should support it, because yeah, it's a hot discussion topic in the mailing lists. Third one being secure TLS connections. As we could see from one of the previous slides, Dane support was recently added to Office and 365, and I expect that these implementations will start enforcing TLS in some cases. Like automatically, they will detect that you have a valid certificate. We're gonna enforce it. But one of the large gaps that haven't been yet addressed is the communication between mail user agents and the MSA or MTA. So when you have your web browser, you can send a header from your web page that you want to keep all your communications always encrypted. There's no mechanism for this for mail user agents. So in some cases, like we have seen in practice as well, users click through the connection warning and send their credentials over a untrustworthy connection that has been intercepted. And yeah, this is quite dangerous. Another thing that we will likely see, and work is ongoing, is post-quantum SMIME. we're gonna see most likely either one of the two being implemented for SMIME. Large CAs are working on getting support in the relevant standards, but yeah, this is as SMIME does not have a lot of deployment just yet. It's probably going to be faster than trying to get everyone using DMARC or something. And yeah, another thing is that web browsers have recently added post-quantum key exchange support. I think most of the major ones have done so just yet. And I would expect that at least some mail servers will do the same in some recent future when the libraries get the support. Because MLChem has been just recently standardized by NIST, so we'll likely see it more in the future. And I think, yeah, now a short recap. Please stop using the length tag. If you have used it in the past, please rotate your keys. If your vendor has shared your key with other customers, force them to change it for you at least. Manage your setups properly. Make sure that you are not including keys that have been long lost or whatever. Because I found an email from my own mailbox sent by Microsoft 13 years ago. Its signature is still valid. And interestingly enough, that message was also signed using the SHA-1 algorithm. It is estimated that the SHA-1 algorithm can be broken under 10,000 euros. That is the PSI estimation from this year. But in addition to SHA-1, we also have like short keys, like 512-bit RSA keys that still exist in some cases. Those can be broken for less than 30 euros, so rotate those out as well. Otherwise, even if you haven't sent any letters with them for a really long time, it still allows forgeries. Please deploy SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, because all of those in total do protect you from forgeries. They protect your company's good name. They avoid a lot of customer support you have to offer if someone gets scammed. It just avoids a lot of pain if you deploy it. And do deploy it for your parked domains as well, because we have seen that some of those are being abused. It is kind of easier in some cases to detect those, but still, please do it for parked domains as well. Then make sure your mail server's TLS configuration is good, that at least you can receive email with using a TLS connection that can be verified. Even if you do not want to enforce TLS for some reason, I don't know what it might be, please just make it do so for others. Then, if you can, deploy MTA STS and maybe Dane, if you have DNSSEC, if you have the tooling for Dane, because DNSSEC and Dane tooling is not that great. You do not have stuff like that. In the case of MTA STS, you just have to run your Acme client just like Certbot or something. So if you have a valid certificate, MTA STS will just keep on working. Dane makes it a bit more complex, but still doable. Then you should stop using Start TLS. If your documentation still recommends it, maybe don't, because there's actually no good reason for using Start TLS over just TLS. And then you should consider implementing PIMI. If you're like a large company that has large presence in like Estonia or something, you might want to make it more visible to your customers that this letter is legitimate and sent by you, not some kind of scammer that wanting 5 years. And lastly, if you have the option, you can also deploy SMIME just for signing. This also has adds another checkmark. And yeah, some customers, maybe more in the future. If people implement SMIME, we might get more clients supporting it in the future. And yeah, it might save us a bit of trouble as well. Thank you.
So, who wants to buy some speed?
Yeah.
There we go. I have to say this is a very, very bold statement on a T-shirt, and I'm from Kopli. It's a very.
So we had this list of these really prominent websites in Estonia that use this length tag. Have they been made aware of this, and have they responded with plans?
Yeah, they have been informed through CERT in this May, and yeah, the improvement. There has been some improvement, but not enough. And some people that stopped using the length tag itself did not rotate their keys. So all of those old emails, the tens of thousands of emails that were sent, are still vulnerable to forgeries.
There's a question over there. And now we have a box.
Actually, I have two questions. The first one is that what was the intentional purpose of this length tag in DKIM? The only thing I came up with is that minimizing the body hash calculation time for long messages. Or
yeah, the initial intention was that mailing lists usually add a footer saying that this letter was sent through this mailing list to this person or something. And in theory, it could have allowed keeping the signature intact. But in reality, mailing lists change more than that, just had a footer, so it really had no practical beneficial effect. And another thing that people were thinking about were like security gateways, but in those cases, those gateways add the warning or whatever banner to the top of the email, breaking the signature again. So yeah, no practical benefit.
Okay, and the second question was about mailing lists. You didn't mention them except in SRS. You mentioned this. Is there any future in mailing lists, or it's a thing of the past?
Well, it kind of depends on your goal. Like, there are a lot of mailing lists still being used because what is the alternative? Using forums, I guess, but they serve a niche and they seem quite alive. But things like DMARC and the SPF have made it quite difficult. But yeah, with ARC and stuff like that, things are improving for mailing lists as well.
And I just have to say, stand-up comedians love mailing lists because we can harass people who bought from us tickets on Phantom. Yeah.
Hey, question here. Could you clarify what using start TLS, please?
Can you repeat the question?
I've lost the middle of your question.
Could you please clarify what the issue or vulnerability is with using start TLS?
So start TLS works by sending an explicit command to start the TLS session. And starting that session, first issue is that how do mailing servers know that you can actually start a TLS connection? So that is advertised in response to the extended hello command. And if it's already encrypted, your middleman can just remove the advertisement that TLS is supported. Now it also falls open. But another issue is that if you mix up encrypted and unencrypted communications, your message parser needs to handle both. So mixing these two different kinds of operation is in practice really dangerous and has resulted in actual mail user agents being vulnerable to various exploits. Because you have started your TLS connection, but then the attacker can just send a plain text message. The parser handles it just fine because it has to. And yeah, that is just bad. And if we can get rid of start TLS, we can just simplify those code paths significantly.